Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another Fresh CFO Fridays. I'm Chris Ortega. Super excited for you here to be today. Hey, before we get started, I hope everybody is having a great week. Let me know in the chats. Let me know how your week is going. I'm based in McCoursville, Indiana, and this weather has been all over the place when it comes to like the snow and like cold weather and like ice. I don't know, man. The polar vortex, man. It's like all over the United States. And for us in Indiana, we're familiar with snow. We're familiar with the cold weather, but this has been that kind of cold weather where you walk outside and you feel it like in your bones. But I hope everybody's having a great week. Like I said, let me know in the chat. Let me know how your week is going. Give me one word of how your week was going. Drop an emoji of how your week was going. But I hope it's going well. And super excited about here today. Today's topic on Fresh CFO Fridays. Before I get started on the topic, if this is your first time coming to look at if you're visiting us on YouTube, if you're looking at us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the other like socials that my team has set up, my name's Chris Ortega. I'm the CEO of Fresh FP&A, and I run a global fractional CFO and advisory service company. Basically, we help businesses transform and scale their finance organization. And so after that, today's topic is the branding playbook, a CFO's perspective. So one of the most important questions that I get asked, and I get a lot of great people, all the conferences globally, all the finance, FP&A, CFO, and fractional CFO leaders that I meet, they always talk about, hey, Chris, you've established a great brand for yourself, whether that's in the business or whether that's personally. So one of the things I wanted to do in this conversation is just give back some key tips. And this doesn't matter if you're building your own business, if you're building your own fractional CFO business, if you're still, working in, corporate. I really want to give you some insights because I think one of the most important things that you could be focused on right now, and it's any stage of your career, right? You could be a CFO all the way down to, hey, Chris, I'm looking at you and I'm still a high school student. Building a personal brand is very, 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 very important. So that's the topic that we're going to talk about here today. And let's jump right into it, guys. Let's get right into it. I'm this weather's keeping me cold, but I've been on fire all week to have this conversation. So the first thing around building your personal brand or your business brand, which I think is the most important one, is define your voice. I want to talk a little bit more about what that means, but defining your voice, right? I think one of the most important things for everybody to realize is your voice matters, right? I get some people that talk to me and reach out to me. I get CFOs, VPs of finance, directors of FP&A, salespeople, and they're like, Chris, man, like, I don't think what I have to say matters. First off, when you're building your personal brand, get over that. Your voice, your experiences, your talents, the things that you've experienced in your personal life, your business life, your professional life, it matters. So, one of the first things that you should do when you define your voice is make sure you leverage the experiences that you've had, right? Looking back over my career, I remember in college, and I won't age myself from when I was in college, but it was a long time ago. Not coming up on 20 years yet. Well, I am actually coming up on 20 years. Yeah, I've been 20 years, not since I graduated college, but it's been 20 years since I started college. So that should probably give you a proxy of how old I am. But I remember back in college, one of the first courses that I took was in the Kelley School of Business. And it was actually like a course that was pretty unique because they made us create like a LinkedIn account. And I remember going back and create my LinkedIn back in college, and I was just like, Facebook was like gaining momentum back then. This is where this is how old I am when it comes to Facebook. Who drop in the chat if you remember in Facebook you could poke people. Remember that? That got really weird in college. I won't even talk about how that went. But one of the things we did in this class is like we created a LinkedIn account. And at the time, like social media was still gaining momentum. Facebook wasn't as big. Twitter was definitely not around. Instagram was brewing in somebody's head, right? But I created this LinkedIn account. And I was like, I knew right then and there, I was like, I want this to be like my landing page that if anybody looks at me on the internet from a personal perspective, even though I was in college, I was like, I want this to be my landing page for anything professionally, right? Let Facebook be for what I'm doing on the weekends and everything else in college. But LinkedIn was going to be my first place, right? So from there, I made sure that I captured experiences that I had. I make sure I got recommendations. I made sure I stayed on top of that. So the first thing in that defining your voice around building your personal brand or your professional brand is leveraging that experience that you have. You got to start, right? The second thing is when you define your voice, one of the most important things that I think I stay true to myself is I stay true to who I am. Like how I am on these videos is how I'm going to show up if you see me in real life. This is how I show up when I'm talking with clients. This is how I show up when I talk to partners. This is how I show up when I'm at the gym. Like I think one of the most important things about defining your voice is stay true to who you are, right? You see, and this is where I have a little like pushback on like social media because I think social media, you see such of the great like good aspects of everything. One great person told me like social media is just everybody's like highlight reel, right? But I think when you're defining your voice, one of the most important things that you need to be focused on is like making sure it's who you are, right? It's so hard to be something you're not, right? Like imagine that. Like me showing up to these videos and me showing up to conferences, me working with clients, me working with my team globally. If I was like a different person in every one of those, that'd be extremely difficult to manage. So I think when you're defining your voice, make sure you stay true to who you are. And I would say the third element of defining your voice and building your brand is you want to make sure that you're authentic and trustworthy, right? Like I think a lot of times in going throughout my career, and probably it comes a lot from how I grew up, right? Like my first meter of like is like anytime you're developing relationships or like you're trying, it's like trust is such an important place, right? And the thing about trust is it takes so long for you to gain it, but it's so quickly to be lost. So part of that third point of being authentic and true to yourself is like you got to trust your experiences. You got to make sure that you're showing up consistently who you are. And then talking about that defining voice, some kind of pitfalls that I see, I kind of mentioned this earlier. A common pitfall that I see for people that don't get started in building their brand or building their value around that is they're like, Chris, I don't know what to say, right? Find something you're passionate about. You know, for me, I'm passionate about enabling finance, FP&A, CFO, and fractional CFO professionals. I'm passionate about talking about my entrepreneurship journey in building Fresh FP&A. I'm passionate about bringing the fresh perspective to finance, right? These are things that I'm passionate about. If you can't tell already, right? It's like, what, Chris? We can't tell you're passionate about that stuff. But find something that you're passionate about, right? And I think that gets over one of those first pitfalls is that, you know, I don't know what to talk about. Leveraging on your passion. Another pitfall that I see about, you know, defining your voice, listen, do not make the mistake of going to go see, you know, it's always good. Like there's always great content creators out there. There's great people that are doing it way bigger levels. Your Mr. Beast of the world, just really great people, right? But I think one of the pitfalls that don't run into is that you may look at that and say, well, this person's like so much, they have way more followers, they have way more likes, comments, all that stuff that really doesn't matter. I don't know if my voice is going to make an impact. Don't go into that negative route with that, right? You never know about your experience or your learning that you had or the opportunity that or the struggle that you're going through can be so impactful to so many other people. So do not fall in that pitfall. Those two common pitfalls I see in terms of defining your voice is that I don't know what to say, and is it really going to matter what people have to say? You got to start. So that's my first piece of advice around developing your brand. Let's jump into the second one. The second one, now you said, hey, Chris, I've defined my voice. I found my passions. I trust. I'm showing up vulnerably. I'm showing up authentically to who I am. I'm ready for that next step. The next step in this branding process now is like you want to start showcasing that expertise, right? And this showcasing the expertise can come down to, you know, this could be videos. Maybe some people aren't a lot of videos. I love videos because for me, getting in like typing and like sitting there through and like typing everything out or, you know, it just takes too long. And I'd rather just get in a video, get in a conversation and talk to people directly. So you want to start showcasing that expertise, right? And that's through various channels, right? That could be through Facebook, that could be through Instagram, that could be through X, Twitter, right? That could be through LinkedIn, that could be through YouTube, that could be through a lot of different avenues, but you want to start showcasing that expertise. Really a great person that I was able to meet last year and coming up the conference circuit I was at was actually not a finance person. They were actually a marketer. And what they did a really great job in marketing is like they were a marketer that helped professional services companies like contractors and like people that work in the healthcare space to be better marketers for their business, right? A common pitfall that they've seen and through their and this is their experience, right? Like they came up in helping connect people to like autistic based services. They did that. They were RBT, which is a registered behavioral therapist. So like they had that experience. And then one of the pitfalls that they seen was like how these business owners don't do a really good job of marketing their business and marketing their services. So I actually met this person when I was in New York, and one of the ways that she showcases her experiences, and she has a really big following on YouTube. She has a really big following there, and she's like, I love showcasing and giving these pitfalls, right? And I checked out a couple of her videos, and I loved how authentically she was. Like you could tell she's speaking from a place of passion, and she's speaking from a place of expertise, right? And she found her method, she found her audience, she found who she wanted to connect with, and she shared that experience, right? And not only did the thing I really admired about her is, and I'll make sure in the description to drop that channel so you can have that as a good reference of like maybe someone outside of finance that you can see that is doing a really good job of building a great personal and professional brand for themselves. I'll make sure to drop that in the description to this video. But I loved how she connected the dots and not only showed like she gave like really common pitfalls and struggles that she was having and not only building her business, but also in some of the experiences that she had in working with some of the companies that she was working with. So my second point around that is you want to start showcasing that expertise, specifically talking to finance, accounting, FP&A, CFO, and fractional CFO professionals, right? A common way to showcase that experience is LinkedIn, right? I mean, you see it all over the place. LinkedIn is one of our primary social channels that we have here at Fresh FP&A. So you can leverage that and show that expertise, right? And it's a lot of different methods you can show it. It could be video, right? Some people are really great in video. Some people are like, nope, I'm not doing that. Some people, it's really insightful insights, right? Some of it is like use cases and client testimonials that you can have, right? So what you want to do around that showcasing your expertise is I look at it as building like a portfolio, right? Like whatever means that you want to establish your brand, there's different portfolio avenues that somebody can engage with it on, right? I know for me personally in building my brand, I love video. Video is just like my thing. Like I love it. My team, we made a significant investment in building an entire content thing around it, content studio, equipment. I've nerded out in learning like the exposure triangle and apertures and polar patterns. So I've really like dove deep into that. And that's because I want to show my expertise and show that knowledge in the best platform as possible, right? Top quality stuff. So when you're thinking about showcasing your expertise, I'm not saying you have to go like 0 to 100, right? I'm not advising to go make significant amount of investment in audio, lighting, all that equipment, right? But you got to start. You got to start, right? You got to start showcasing that expertise. And it kind of gets back to the first point we talked about before, where it's like, people were like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know if my voice actually matters, right? Showcase it, right? I go through LinkedIn, I look at some things and I'm like, I look at learning from everybody, right? So that would be that second point around showcasing that expertise, some common ways to do it, finding the methods and avenues you want to talk about. I think sharing experiences that you've learned, right? Here's a great thing that I think every professional has gone through, right? You know that like this SMART acronym, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time sensitive, right? Those are great ways to showcase. That's a great framework to use to showcase your experiences, right? Like maybe you were, a lot of people are coming out of budgets, and maybe this is your first time or your 1,000th time going through a budget, and you're like, man, I want to share some smart tips for people on my experience in my voice about what I learned from this budgeting process, right? Share it, get it out there, showcase that expertise. And then with this one, some common pitfalls that I see around showcasing expertise is that the first common pitfall that I see is people expect, like, you look at all this great high quality stuff and you're like, I can never replicate that. And that prevents you from starting to showcase your expertise, right? Like I don't have the super nice 4K 30 frames per second 50 millimeter f.1 aperture setup. Like I don't have that. You got to start, man. So don't let like your like that quality aspect prevent you from releasing some really great information, right? Another pitfall that I see people make in terms of like showcasing their expertise is it kind of starts to feel like it's like, hey, this isn't like a therapy session. Like sometimes it feels that way. Maybe drop in the chat if you feel like my videos sometimes are therapy sessions, right? But you can kind of see like that showcasing of expertise is like it's a very long, and it's like, hey man, can you get to like the specific points? So my point around that pitfall is you don't put structure around it, right? Here's a great tip and this is a simple tip that I've learned, right? I learned this probably when I was in like third grade around paragraphs, right? If you look at, and this is my subtle secret, so for everybody looking at it, you want to know a secret sauce of Fresh FP&A. I look at like structures of like how you do a paragraph, right? There's an intro, there's like three takeaways, and there's a concluding paragraph. I remember learning that in like English class when I was in like third grade. It was like, hey, if you want to do a really great paragraph, you have the great introduction, you have like, or maybe like a paper, maybe it's not like a paragraph, maybe it's a paper, but you do like an intro, you have like 3 points that either supplement, disagree, or validate with that intro and the hypothesis, and you have a great conclusion at the end. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I'm kind of going to do everything. So I've literally taken that exact framework and just applied it over to when we share our expertise or things like this. You can go look at this. Here's my challenge. Go look at my last 4 posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and you'll see that same structure, right? You'll see a great title, you'll see a great intro, you'll see 3 takeaways, and maybe it's a conclusion or a call to action at the end. Super easy, like linear path of how you're going through. That's a great way that you can just start showcasing your experience, right? And from the technology side, shoot it on your iPhone, right? Like shoot on your iPhone, or I'm team Android, so hey, shout out to all those iPhone users that just got USB Type C. We've had that for a long time, so I won't even talk about all the different great things we have with Android, but that could be a great way, right? Like, get your phone out, have a great structure. So those are like 2 common pitfalls I see around sharing your expertise. And again, for that person I was referencing, I'll make sure to drop that in the description so you can see that person's how they're building their personal brand, and how they're showcasing their experience, right? And how they're showing up. So those are the first 2. The third one I want to jump into is this is probably after you've, in that first step, you define your voice, you found your most authentic truth, right? You overcome some of those pitfalls around it, and you're like, Chris, I found my voice. I know what I'm passionate about. I know how I want to talk about. Then you go into, now you're starting to showcase that expertise. You're starting to use some of those different channels, right? You're building a portfolio of now of you sharing your expertise. You found great ways and great mediums of how you want to share. And I gave you a great framework of how you want to position that. The third piece around building your professional brand, you want to engage with your audience, right? So for us at Fresh FP&A, engaging with my audience, and this has always been like a focal piece for me, is I want to go meet people where they are, right? So last year we went to, I can't tell you how many different conferences we went to last year, but I just love being face to face and like right around with people, connecting with people, engaging with them, having topics. There's so many people that I meet where they're just like, they meet me and they're just like, Chris, man, like, I see how you are on maybe LinkedIn and I see you at this conference and it's so awesome to finally meet you, and who you are on LinkedIn and all your different avenues is exactly the person how you show up. And for me, like that's like a pat in the back. That's like, hey man, we're doing. Shout out to shout out to Fresh FP&A marketing team. It's not just me; it's an entire team of people that are helping me do all this great stuff. So first and foremost, I want to let everybody know it's a complete team effort around that. But that engagement is important, right? And I always like the engagement aspect of it from like a curiosity perspective, right? Like I always like to learn and I like to engage from like my community and learning from other people. I think that's one of the best ways to engage with your audience is like from a curiosity perspective. Like, how are you doing these things? Like, what are some challenges that you've seen, or what are some opportunities that you found, or what are some quick hacks that tips and tricks that you know, right? You want to make sure that you engage, right? You want to make sure people feel like it's not just, hey, this is Chris Ortega, and he's not a person that I could feel like I can have a conversation over coffee with, right? The other way that you want to do it is when you're engaging your audience, it's in that it kind of dovetails off of that second point, right? If you're engaging with your audience through like video, right? Or if you're engaging with your audience through blog posts or whatever other like content avenue streams that you have, right? You want to meet them where they are, right? So a lot of times, some of the best, and this is, I'm going to be selfish, some of the best ideas and best topics that I've engaged with or talked about, I've actually found it from engaging my audience, right? And that's engaging maybe through the comments, maybe that's engaging through messages, that's maybe engaging through our newsletter, which, go check out freshfpna.com. Scroll down to the bottom. There should be a subscription. Drop in your email. You'll be part of our newsletter. That's a quick and easy way. I'll drop a link right here so you can see exactly how to subscribe. But that could be a great avenue, right? So finding different ways to engage and meet your audience where they are, right? Some people, for me, I love, like I said, the first point, I love meeting people, being face to face with people. There's nothing that gets away from that, man. I know this whole hybrid thing and remote and all here, but there's nothing that beats sitting across from somebody and just meeting them and learning their story and how you can help them, how you can help support them. So it's finding those different channels, finding those different mediums to engage, right? The other way that you can engage with your audience too, from building a brand perspective is, if you say, all right, I know my brand, I know my audience is like my audience that I love engaging with, global fractional CFOs, FP&A, finance, professionals globally, right? That is my audience. That's my tribe. That's my people, right? So I'm meeting them at the conferences that they're at. I'm meeting them in the, the micro, super engaging events, the little micro events. I'm meeting them in terms of like webinars and podcasts. I'm meeting them in terms of videos that I'm doing. So that engagement aspect, you want to make it feel like it's a community, right? When your brand not only feels like it's just you, but now people start to feel like they're part of a community of other professionals, that is really, really, really top quality brand building right there, right? So, and similarly to some of the other three that I mentioned, some common pitfalls that I see engaging with your audience is you leave it very like, maybe you get an engaging comment, you're just like, hey, thank you. Well, like that may be a missed opportunity, right? Maybe it's like, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Why was that valuable for you, right? And a great mentor told me this, right? Is there's nothing wrong in like seeking feedback on stuff, right? I want to make sure that I'm producing high quality, really great content for finance, FP&A, CFO, and fractional CFO professionals. So I like getting feedback, right? I get people that message me, I get people that email me, I get people that send me LinkedIn messages and they're like, "Hey Chris, I really like that video. It was really insightful." And I'm like, "Awesome. Tell me what you found insightful about the video," right? Found awesome, right? And that's a great way of engaging with your audience to get like real-time feedback. Another question I love to ask is like, okay, you found that great. What are some ways that you think we could have done better? Like, was the topics clear enough? Was the topic interesting enough? Like, engaging your audience to make it a two-way street, right? Where you're getting feedback on what you could do better, what you're doing well, And then also they feel part of that. It kind of builds that community aspect. So that's a common pitfall that I see is the engagement that you have is not as depth and it's not as enriching in terms of like the audience that you're you're engaging with and you're targeting towards. The second pitfall that I see around engaging your audience is you don't have it as a place of like, okay, how can I engage with Chris, right? Like, is it through like messages? Is it through like email? So that engagement, it's like really hard for people, right? Sometimes on social media, it's really easy. It's a post, it's a comment, right? And a lot of times, what I see sometimes in engaging is like people don't actually respond back to those, right? Like I said before, some of the best topics, some of the best feedback, some of the best information that we've gathered has come from like our community. The comments that I've seen, the impact, the advice that people have said, the face to face where people are like, "Hey, Chris, have you thought about this?" So that's some common things that I see around some of the pitfalls that people make, specifically around building their brand, right? And I would say like a bonus one. Here's a bonus one in terms of building your professional brand. So we talked about, let's go through the top three again, right? Defining your voice, hugely important. The second one that we talked about was showcasing that expertise, looking at those different avenues. How do you want to showcase it? The third one was engaging your audience. I would say the fourth bonus one to building your professional brand is this is a Jay-Z quote, right? And I think this is so important. I live by this, right? Jay-Z said in a song, I don't know the exact song, but he's like, we don't talk about it unless we lived it, right? Lived, shared experiences that you've gone through is the biggest source of value in building your brand, right? And you can know, right? And that's the here's the downside of like social media. People can be whoever they are, right? People can show up, and I've met people that I'm completely surprised about the audience that they talk to and what they're doing, and they never like actually like lived in that shoe, right? And I find that like super interesting, right? Like you're talking, you're giving advice, you're giving insights, you're, a champion, you're doing all this stuff. But when you look at your background, the experience, like you never lived that. So how could like I've never been able to reconcile that, right? And I think it gets back down to like if what your words are and your actions don't line up to me, I have a hard time like really getting into that. So my bonus tip is if you wanted to take away like right now around that bonus tip, think about those shared experiences that you have. Think about the thing, and this could be personally as well. A lot of what I've personally gone through in my life, I talk about in building Fresh FP&A, right? I talk about in, helping bring on high growth companies to provide fractional CFO and advisory services, right? Like I live these situations, right? So one bonus tip that if you want to start really building that professional brand, look inwards and say, what are some of those shared experiences? What are some of those things that I can talk about that I lived, right? That's so valuable, right? It's so valuable because that lived experience you learned, you probably have some ways as you look back, you could have done it better, right? I have plenty of those. I have plenty of lessons learned. Some of them are business related, some of them are boxing related, some of them I have every day. I look forward to getting lessons learned that I have. So that's a bonus tip for you is like looking through some ways of like, how can I look back over the shared experience that I've had and leverage that to help define my voice, to help, share my experiences, to help develop that engagement that I want for my audience. So that would be a bonus tip that I would add in terms of building your professional brand. And, for me, in conclusion on this topic, I think like when you think about your brand, right? This is how you want to show up, right? This is how you want to show up every day for your business. Make sure you're staying true to who you are. Make sure you're authentic. Make sure you're bringing your passion forward, right? Another thing, I love these tips, right? Because I get going. I have all this wealth of information I want to share with everybody. Here's the thing about building your brand. Another bonus tip. This is number 5 now. We're up to 5. Okay, guys. Okay, I'll stop at 5. I got plenty of more. I'll make sure, and we're going to turn this into a blog post, and there'll be all this information we'll give you. But a bonus fifth one that I would say is like really, really important in building your professional brand is specifically around, like, I talked about all those other ones. And for me, like, it's specifically around, I love like having that ability of like showing my passion, right? I think when you're building a brand, here's the thing. I get so many people that you can tell that they're 1000% locked into their brand because the passion comes through, right? The passion, the energy, the excitement, right? If you take two people, take person A, they're like, yeah, I'm really excited about sharing my experience of going through building a fractional CFO company. That's person A. Now you get person B, where there's like, man, I can't wait to share this with you. Can't wait to share this excitement, this lessons learned. Here's the key takeaway from that around building your brand. If you're not passionate internally about the brand you're building, and if you're not passionate about the voice that you're projecting, if you're not passionate about the experience you're sharing, if you're not passionate about engaging the audience that you're targeting, how can you expect somebody else to be passionate about it, right? Like that always, you look at some of the best brands in the world and some of the maybe like thought leaders in the world, and you see them talk, you can just see that passion that they have. You can see that fire, right? Shout out to Vegeta over there. You can see that Super Saiyan aura that goes around them, right? That's a bonus tip number 5. Make sure you're passionate about your brand, because if you're not passionate about your brand, how can you expect somebody else to be? So, hey, hope you enjoyed this Fresh CFO Fridays. If you've got a lot of value from this video, make sure if you're over on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any future Fresh CFO updates or any videos that we're doing. Now that I'm home and I'm not traveling, we're going to be posting out a lot more. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. If you're in the Midwest or if you're anywhere in the United States right now, try to stay warm. Playoffs are this weekend. Let's go Ravens. That's my team I'm going for. I love Lamar Jackson and everything that they're doing. So hope you have a great weekend. And as I always end, keep pushing, never settle, and the best is yet to come. Let's get it, everybody. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Keep it fresh.